Well, Dr. Lemmon here, and this is actually my talk, which will come up on schedule with the June blog, probably around June 1st. But I'm going ahead and open it up. I'm actually recording it a little early because I've got some things on agenda that I've got to take care of and some little small projects. And so anyway, I thought I'd throw it out. And for all you guys that have clicked on sponsorship with my YouTube videos, you'll just get it a little sooner. So I don't know if that's good news or bad news, but consider it a gift, whatever that means. Okay. I kind of rambled on and on last time because this whole talk has been about teaching and my concepts of putting together a teaching program and how I built the platform. And then every time we would go through a type of class, we would just go deeper through the same material, different linguistic structures, different examples, different modeling. So it appeared somewhat newer, but at some point in time, after around 4 or 5 years, you started to get the idea that like, oh, this is the same thing, but a little deeper, a little more in depth, at some point in time, you realize that you're trying to accomplish something over here and you're putting all your attention over here. And after a few years of taking classes, you finally realize that you're really trying to accomplish something over here, but keep it in balance over there. And that is really tough because we don't automatically think that way. We automatically think that we're learning something and then we'll be able to apply that. And really, we're in a world of potential. You don't just learn a potential and go out and apply it. It's just like all you guys that may have graduated and still can't find a job. I got lots of people contact me. It's kind of like, yeah, it takes a little while right now. And it's very, very frustrating right now. I got all the above. And so you start to recognize it's like, you're got to be able to apply that and to come into play. And so anyway, I talked at the very end of the last time, I talked a little bit about, I kind of modeled everything after my 3 beginning classes or 6-week classes. They're introductory level, but it gives you an introduction to the language. So I use them as a model for, number one, people who have not taken any of my classes. I'm most certainly welcome to send you the material that the teachers use in a class. Doesn't give you the interactive play that happens in a class, but most certainly you can kind of look at that and you have enough life experience to put it together. And if not, you probably couldn't figure it out anyhow, so it don't really matter, right? All right, so when we start to go into communications, and I said last time, I got done talking about utility, which is kind of like a healing class. I said, we'll talk more about communications, but then I started rambling about communications. So I'll just get into more of the steps in the class steps to be able to get you into what communication means. It's a little different in meaning, not so intuitive. A communication for a lot of people, I don't know what it means, really. It's just like communication in classes in college is that I'm not sure anymore what it means. But for me, in the way that I structured it, communications means communicate the idea of you and the potential of you, which is the idea of you. It's a small piece of the potential of you out into the world. That's what communication meant to me. So when it starts out, the first thing in communication is that you have to be in elements of communication. You got 2 people involved or 1 person in a group or whatever, or 2 groups. And if there's one idea getting communicated to another idea, whether it's definitive or invitational or argumentative or perpetual redundancy. Nonetheless, we see all of that in life. I'm sure you get all those pop-up ads that are just perpetual redundancy. And so that's the nature of communications, kind of broad in scope from what it was a long time ago. But anyway, that's where it comes in. The first thing you have to do is you have to be one of the communicators, either side of it. To be one of the communicators, you have to be greater than. You have to be great enough to be present and accountable. So in the terms of language I found useful in teaching is I like to play with the word arrogance because people have some negative connotations of arrogance. And sometimes when you get people that are judgmental about a word, they look at it differently. And it's easier for them to gauge. If I said friendly or something like that, they go, oh, I'm already friendly. But if I say you got to be arrogant, they go, oh, I'm not. I know people that are arrogant. I'm not that way. Well, that's good. That's where I want you. I want you to gauge. So when we start to talk about it, I want you to be in a communication, you need to be one of the communicators, whether there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 12, 50 of you, it don't matter. You have to be one of them. You have to have a voice in a group. You need to be 50 to 51% arrogant. And you need to play with that. You need to practice talking to the mirror and then to friends and to strangers and wherever. You need to find out, is it always about you? Wow. Or is it always about them? Wow. If everything is about them, you may not even be anywhere near 50%. So you're not even a communicator. You're just, all you are is an echo for them. That's it. If you're somewhere between 50 and 51%, you'll get your word in every now and then. If you're over 51%, at that point in time, they're listening to you. Yes, I know as a teacher, every now and then we'll bounce around with an idea. And when I get them all in sync, whether all the energy is flowing and everything's in sync, I will slam them with an idea and kind of spin their wheels. And then I'll shut up and have them do a little exercise or give me some feedback. So sometimes I have to push that up and be the teacher, right? But in normal communications, it's not about Chris Lemmon at all. So somewhere in there between 50 and 51%, you are the speaker, you show up, you have something to say, and you're not intimidated if someone else disagrees with you or comes at it from a different approach or has more experience with whatever you said or has more diversity. All of those things add to the package at 50 to 51%. Perfect. Takes a lot of playing. Yes, and we teach them techniques in class to play with that so they can start to feel it. So here they are, feeling energy, looking around, kind of looking at the energy, seeing what's going on, and bouncing things around and talking with a partner and playing with this arrogance and in training and feeling all this, right? So it's, it's like a little complicated. It's rubbing your belly, tapping your head. But it is fun. And you can most certainly learn it. I find that everybody in the classes becomes better at communication. They make their statement. They don't always integrate it into every state of their life. And sometimes like when the police pull you over or something like that, it's really kind of hard to be arrogant enough. And then also there's times when if you're a little too arrogant, you get into big trouble. Finding a balance point in all the aspects of your life, if you're frustrated, emotional, it may not be well managed. It may require some more work. I should say it does require more work if you want to progress forward. If you accomplish this one time, you have a moment. If you continue with that, you now have an operating platform called you that's far more effective in the world. And that's what we want to get to. All of this stuff is finding a point of balance, then losing it, becoming an idiot, and then finding a point of balance again and practicing with it until all of a sudden you can sit back and say, oh, okay. Wow, they think differently than I do, and that's okay. So maybe I can learn something from them. If they think differently with me, they probably don't want to hear anything from me because everything's going to be an argument. So my best opportunity and someone who thinks differently than me is, hey, teach me something about your side. I have an opinion of your side, but I may not know all of it, right? I mean, I can tell you right now, I'm not a person that eats a lot of sugar because I don't like it in my diet. I quit very, very young in life. I was 5 years old and I would get as a reward, I would get a candy bar. And that's typical with kids. And I'd eat the candy bar and then I'd be sitting there and about an hour or so later, I'd feel that crash from the sugar. And I go, wow. And it happened enough times where all of a sudden I realized I don't want a candy bar anymore. And so then when someone reward me and they say, oh, if you help, I will give you a candy bar. And I said, I don't want a candy bar, but I'll help you. And that worked better for me as a kid. And so it got me more engaged. I had really started to find, wow, I got my reward out of learning and having fun and doing something rather than just sitting around and staring. You got to remember, when you go back in my life, there was no TV. So pretty much life for me was get out the front door and go walk in the woods, go hike around, go meet people, go, right? And so if I could help someone at home and have some interaction, it all of a sudden gave me a connection that wasn't a default connection. That wasn't automatically there because I wasn't sitting there expecting someone to entertain me, help me, or any of the above, or even talk to me, because not a whole lot of adults in my childhood talked to kids, right? I was pretty much relegated to the basement and I played. So it was nice being able, nice weather, to be able to get out and be able to having a little club soda because it was a little warm today. Okay, so arrogance you got to be defiant to some relative degree, like me. There are times when I was totally lost and I just get totally defiant and obnoxious as all get out. And then I'd back down and let people come back at me, and then I could open up a channel. I wouldn't advocate that to someone with a lot of experience, but I have played that. Yeah, most everybody, they don't have anything personal to say, just gets mad at you and leaves. The rest of the people that want to make a point, then all of a sudden will come to neutral ground, and then you can open up to them and they can open up to you. It's a back doorway for you advanced people, right? For the rest of the people, play with that. Somewhere between 50 and 50. Listen to your conversations with people. Have more conversations with strangers. Listen to your conversations with people. They ask you for directions. You would say, oh, wow, you want to go such and such a place. Have you ever been there before? Wow, what have you heard about it? Open up a little conversation before you give them directions. Say, I'd be glad to help you. Get some personal piece into it, because that is where you'll find your 51% arrogance. Someone says, can you tell me how to find in San Diego Wild Animal Park? It's not the easiest place to find if you're a tourist. And I'd say, yes, I would be delighted to help you. This is really an interesting place. I'm assuming you know about it, and it's like very different than a zoo and more interactive. I think that it used to be less zoo-like. It's becoming a little more zoo-like, but it's still cool. And so, yes, I'd be delighted to help you. And so where are you guys from? You see how I build a story into it and then shut up and let them talk a little bit. And then I start to map out how to get there. So that's the whole game of interchanging. That's how I get to my 51% arrogance. It's me in the picture. They'll say this old guy with glasses gave me directions, and they're either going to be happy with it or mad at me. One of the way, it just depends how well they can follow directions. And that's a scary piece today. Okay, so the first process is a process to be able to become a little more arrogant, a little more defining who you were, self-centered, grounded in reality. They got thousands of terms for it. But you need a term that, because this is a communication process, need a term that's a little bit of a slap. Hey, wake up here. Oh, wow. Yeah. Become a little arrogant. Let's see you here. Wow. Let's get your energy up. Come on. Get a little warm. Get some energy running. Be here. Be present with this. Be interactive. You don't have to open your mouth to be interactive. You need to think to be interactive. They said that. Think about that. Where's that going to go? How's that going to work in your life? Where's that going to take you? You don't have to make it right or wrong with them. You need to entertain it for you to fill that range that you develop. Okay, that's the first thing. These things seem a little redundant, but they really have a different niche or a different meaning. So the second one is the meaning of the word no. Let me get my prop. So this is a good no. I think this was, I don't know, it says made in China. But as I tell you, but it's nice because it gives you at least an audio no.
This is my last word. No.
Okay. So it gives you a whole batch of no's. And so I used to have a whole bag of those, and I would take it in a glass and say, here's a no. And then we would get together and And someone would ask someone a favor, like, hey, would you, I've got some notes here I got to go through. Would you help me a little bit? Or I've got a paper I wrote. Would you look at the spelling? I'm not all that good at spelling. And you just tell them no. Like, oh my goodness. Can you say no without being offensive? Can you say no without being mad at someone? Can you say no without making an excuse? Can you just say no? Right? And that's tough. You see how this is what I call communication. First, you have to show up. And then number two, you have to be the person that says, no, yeah, I can't help you. That's it. No story, no BS, no nothing, no apology, no. And see what that feels like energetically and get to where you own that. You just own it. Clear. You say no. They don't get mad at you. They really don't get mad at you. They really don't. If you say it and you got a picture out there that says, I don't like you, or this is something to do with a racial issue or a club issue or blah, 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 whatever. No, whatever you got going. Now, you haven't found you yet. You're still playing off of someone else's story. When you get to the 50, 51%, you just say no. Now it's you saying no. You have not insulted them. You have not insulted yourself. You have not ended your relationship. You just said no. All right. I'm recording this in the evening. So you'll see the color kind of go dark and light a little bit. That's what it does at nighttime because there's no outside light. So the light in here kind of, I don't know, builds momentum, goes away. The computer is trying to always monitor it, and it's kind of going crazy because it's not where it thinks it should be, right? So it's arrogant, but it doesn't have a very firm no. It's trying to be obedient. So after arrogance, you deal with no. No is just boom. So communication is a really tough class. In very beginning classes, with 6-week classes, probably the people that make it through communications all go on and take advanced programs. If I lose anybody, it's somewhere in the communication piece, right in there or somewhere, because all of a sudden they just can't quite get this, which really means they need to go away for a little while and come back later. That's what it really means. Because after this, the concepts require that you show up and be interactive, you engage in a different sort of way. And that's it. The magic comes from you being present, your energy being present, and your ability to make something happen. You are an influence in the world, or you're not. And if you're an influence because you made someone angry, you haven't been an influence. They're not angry at you, they're angry at a class or a model or an idea or a club or some silliness, and you got totally discounted to nothing in that. And there's no communication in that. That's an insult. So you want to, first off, be arrogant. Number two, learn the meaning of no. Really, really tough. The third step, there's 6 steps. The third step is to be done, D-O-N-E. You know, it seems like I'm so done with this. Well, if it happens again, you weren't done with it. Let me tell you, my definitions of no and done. And my notes just fell down. It's okay. My definitions of no and done. So no to me means not that way. So when you're hitting a no, or you get a no from someone, more relevant, when you get a no, it means not that way. So you have to say, oh, I'll have to solve it another way. That's what they're telling you, right? If I say no to someone, it means not that way. They might come back and say, okay, if you don't have time to help me, could I at least go through this and then maybe email to you later? Or in other words, they can negotiate, and no doesn't stop negotiations, right? Done stops negotiations. When you're really, really done with someone who's pestered you, bothered you, made too much noise, complained, whatever, they're gone. They're gone. So remember, these are influences. They're literally gone. You know, I've had so many people I sat down that would come to me and they go, oh, I have people stalking me. I have this happening. I have this happening. And we sit there and we work the energy of done. And next thing you know, just like, it doesn't take very long and they don't remember even what was going on. They don't remember what even that problem was. They don't If you're chewing your nails and you want to say no, that's one thing. If you become done, that means you don't do it again. So you see how that 51% arrogance has got to be there. If it's not there, you're not going to be done. You can't be done. It's going to get you. If you're 49%, you drop to 48.5, you're chewing your fingernails because you just dropped down below the marker where unconscious patterns, habits, that's unconscious patterns, habits then play out louder than you. You need to be the number one voice. Communication is you communicating, not you taking orders. You communicating. You're not playing against the demands of patterns, playing against the demands of habit. You're playing in a world of communication where you have a voice to speak. That gives you a chance to bring your potential to reality. You just got to find a path to that. So that's it. So done means you've severed that. When I can remember way back when I was forming a company, and I was getting my not-for-profit. And so bottom line, somebody told me, well, you put 3 names down. You always put 3 names down because if someone's got their first name, then you at least get the second or the third. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, someone doesn't understand arrogance. Oh, I didn't say that, but that was my mind. So I just sat down and filled the paperwork out and put the name for what I wanted, and it got it. Of course, there it was, right? Why wouldn't it be that way? Right? Of course it was, It's interesting because it takes that 50 plus or 50 to 51 minus a little, plus a little, somewhere in there, most certainly somewhere between that narrow range, to be able to make all those things. There's different consequences below 50 and different above 51. It requires some exercise or some planning, not that easy, which is why it was the 3rd beginning class. And then it integrates in every program, maybe defined and structured differently, but it's most certainly in the heart of everything that I teach after that. Okay, the 4th thing that we work on. Yeah, it's been one of those parched days, and when I'm done, I have to go out and water the side yard, which has no sprinklers. So, I love the cold weather and the rain, and those things make my life simple. When we have 2 days of sunshine, it's like, oh, now I got work to do. But anyway, the good news is that we're going on a little trip for a couple of days, and so I got someone to come over and check on the watering, so I don't have to worry about it. Okay, the 4th thing on there is we. We is a plural I. And so a plural I doesn't mean someone who's your shadow. It doesn't mean a club membership. Definitely doesn't mean a club membership. It doesn't mean, oh, we think the same. It doesn't mean we're in love. Oh my God, I like the same music she does. I like the same movies she does. I think we're in love. We eat the same food. You guys would drive each other nuts because within a year, you were so bored of looking at you in the mirror that you would just, bad way to operate. But if that's how you got married, well, I've been married many times, so I'm just sharing you with some of the mistakes I made. Okay, we is something different. We just means we're going to work together in this. I'm not going to run it. You're not going to run it. We're going to work together on this. We're going to wash the car. You do the left side. I'll do the right side. Good. We got it. Got a plan. We got a plan. We is a uniting element. We means I'm here 50 to 51%. You're there 50 to 51%. All we have to do is negotiate everything over 50. Now and then I'll be, I get the whole top. I'm up on the ladder. Oh, okay. The other guy says, no. I got a box over here I'm standing on. I'll get my half. You get your half. All those are possible. Negotiation is totally available. Nobody had to one up themselves because they're both at 50 to 51%. It's easy. You don't lose that much. You're still in the game. That's we. That is totally we. So Do you have to be in train with them? No, you don't have to all the time. But when you sit down and negotiate a project, discuss it, whatever it's going to be, come on, you guys have probably been in committees, you've been in that kind of programs. It's like, and it's always somebody speaks up, somebody that's, 65% arrogant is blah, 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 going off and off and off. And everybody says, well, we'll let him run it. He thinks he knows everything about it. Oh, that is a mistake. You should check into his record, because if he's failed every time, he's going to fail again, and you don't know he fails all the time. So really, that's when I step away, right? I have stepped away a lot in life. It's just not worth it, right? I have lots of times run into people that said, hey, you want to work on this project? I said, yeah, I'd love to. I have built walls. I've helped people finish out walls in churches. I've done repairs on houses. I've done all kinds of things, work with all kinds of people. I have learned a lot from doing that. I have been useful, and they have been useful. And it's always been a we. Nobody was in charge. And even when I had a project and I was in charge, someone would say, what do you want to do there? And I said, well, this is what my idea was. Can you improve on that? But what did I miss that I don't know? And then they think about it for a while, and well, you could do it this way too. Would that be better? And I would have a dialogue, because I need to establish that I do not want to control them. I don't want to put a demand on them. I really want that to be, let's do it, but let's do it right. So bring your expertise and bring mine. I can make the decision. That's not a problem. But I want to hear your side of it first. You follow this? And that's the dynamic in we. So from here, it gets even tougher. These are not easy pieces or something you're going to get in 6-week class, but you're going to get a foundation of it. And in a group, you're going to get to feel what happens when you start to include someone and package it in there where you're both on terms. You see, arrogance doesn't do you a whole lot of good if you've got a bunch of followers. Even if 45% are going to do whatever you say. So that doesn't do you a lot of good. No does not do you a lot of good if you don't have enough dynamic range and power in your energy to be able to express the no and have people hear it, right? Done doesn't do you any good at all if you're not willing to not drag it forever, hang on to it forever, regurgitate it. I don't know how many times. Done means you're done and they're done. And that communicates to the energy. Believe me. We really just means that you've got to take that person, and it's not that we're the same. It's not that we even agree. It's that we are going to be on an equal footing. But equal footing means we both have a voice. We both got 50 to 51% arrogance, and we're just struggling in that 1%, going back and forth and willing to negotiate that peace and have the skill sets to negotiate it. Number 5 is abandonment. Abandonment, the term in psychology was disassociation, but I like abandonment a little better. It kind of lights people up a lot more. So it always reminds me of the Lord of the Flies. But anyway, abandonment just means that, can you let it go? Is this different than done? Yes, it's different than done, because when you're done with something, it means that you're not going to put any more energy into it, so it shows up again. Abandonment is that you're starting to take all the components that were put into that, and you're starting to pull them out. You're abandoning it as if it doesn't exist over there, right? We just got blurry. That was weird. Once again, the video does a little funny things at nighttime. And I can move over a little bit. For the most part, when we're looking at done, you can say, the guy down the street borrowed my lawnmower 2 years ago, hasn't brought it back. I think I'm done negotiating with him. I'm going to write this off. I can be done with this. I'll never talk to him again. I'll leave it alone. He'll leave it alone. We're done. I'll get another lawnmower and I move on. It's done. So, and you got a new lawnmower, it works much better, is nothing, and you know if you're done with it, then done with it energetically, all of a sudden he's not going to come over. I don't care what story's in his head, but it actually starts to generate that communication, right? We do communicate energetically, right? There's tons of science for that. And there's tons of books out there. I don't need to go into all that. Okay. In abandonment, it's another whole piece. Abandonment means that not only did you let that go, but you let the whole concept go. So when you start to then look at it, it's not like you even think about it. You start to think and say, I need a lawnmower. What can I put into that? And you start to build a creative piece. You're not going to wind up with the same type of lawnmower. You're not going to wind up with the same concept. You're going to wind up with something totally different. I don't know how many lawnmowers I've been through in my life. Every time I've moved somewhere, I've given them away because I always said to myself, I'm done mowing grass. I'm never going to have another lawnmower again. I gave it to someone. I wind up someplace with lawn. So I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. I was done with the lawnmower, I guess, but I wasn't done with it. I even had just a little piece of grass. I got a little electrical lawnmower that could buzz it. And then, so now finally in life, I'm saying, okay, I'm done. So I bought this place up here and it was all landscaped, no grass, no lawnmower. I don't even need to think about one. I am actually abandoning that whole concept. There's nothing. If I see a blade of grass growing, I pull it out. It's a weed. That's it. Well, it is a weed. And so that's the dynamic in it. Abandonment is a next step to done. Done means you're not quite, you're detached from the person, but not the elements. Abandonment means you're detached from the person and all the elements. The package becomes a different package. I don't go get another lawnmower like the one, a newer version of the one that I loaned out. No, I'm going to rethink the whole thing. And so that's where it starts to come out different. Okay. It's simple when we're talking about lawnmowers. It's a little more complicated when we talk about ex-wives and ex-husbands or children or all the above, or jobs or attitudes. But, you know, if you've got an attitude and a job and you leave and you think, those guys, they didn't like me. I don't know why. I was smarter than them or something, whatever. So I'm done with them. Well, they're probably done with you too. So it never comes to play, right? But then it's another whole story when you abandon. And then you start to realize, what did I had a guy years ago came to me from Santa Barbara and he said, I was married. I'm divorced. I like being married better than not being married. Works out better in my life. I just feel better being married. I feel like having a partner, someone to share things, much better. So I prefer being married, but I don't want to make the same mistakes. I can blame all kinds of things on her, but the truth is I had some part of it. So can we work with that part? He's really looking at an abandonment, right? He's abandoning all the elements he brought to the table, and he would have just found another woman that would have tolerated that for a period of time and would have been whatever. And we worked on this once a week for about a year. And finally, just after about a year, he finally goes and he says, I saw this lady and she was attractive. I was attracted to her. I wanted to go over and ask her out to do something. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is my MO. I have done this so many times. And so he said, I went over and I said, I was trying to find some way to introduce me to you because I thought you looked like a really nice, bright, intelligent person and attractive too. And then I'm sitting there thinking of all the dumb things I could say to make this happen. And I was so embarrassed that I couldn't come up with something intelligent. So I thought instead I'd come over and ask you for help. What way, help me out here. What way would be acceptable for someone to, in your world, for someone to come up and say, hi, you look like a very interesting person. Can we chat for a little bit? And if, we don't have similar interests, or if you don't want to talk to someone, or if you're in a relationship, what all, that's fine. I have no agenda. Here I am trying to figure out how to operate better. And so he used that line on around 4 or 5 women. Finally, some woman, about the 5th one, said, yes, I'd be glad to help you, and started talking to him. And they sat there and talked for around 4 hours in a coffee shop, for heaven's sakes. And within a year, they were married. And to my knowledge, still married. It was kind of like, he said, he just like never found anything once they got communicating, never found anything that worked so simple, was always, always, always clear, because they had built it in. He had managed to abandon all those pieces that he had learned from his family, his culture, whatever, the rest of his friends in school, the guys he hung out with, I don't know. And he let that all go. He abandoned it. And something in that piece of arrogance of being able to have a communication with her and not be over 51%, but somewhere in that range, you get it? He was able to let that come up and open up a discussion with her. Oh, yes. The first 2 or 3 kind of failed because he couldn't quite find that balance point, but a little practice, he got to it. And then from that, he went into business, and he started using that in his field to interview and talk to people. And he became a lot more successful. He was actually in the book business. And so he was putting together books and manuals. And there was a lot of communication and structuring out how to do a manual information. And he became a lot better communicator in this whole process of learning that. Okay. So that's abandonment. And I got review notes here. So listen and learn to be you at 50%. Master no. That means that you'll hold that 50%, 50 to 51% all the time. As soon as you can't master no, you've just dropped below that 50%, or you got too arrogant and you're defiant, and that won't work either. So you're only going to find that no working for you in that 50 to 51%, really. Mastering done means drop all the trash, all the attachments you're dropping from your end. And if you had any attractor out there or interface with that person, as soon as you drop all that, they just lose interest too. It's the badger of energy moving back and forth, although it's not conscious, will certainly keeps you engaged, right? We have a parallel, not a club, not the same thing. Somebody where you can live in that 50 to 51% and move back and forth. And that then conserves the wholeness. The wholeness is all potential, means all people engaged. At some place, if we're going to have a unity on this planet as a global people, everybody's going to be somewhere between 50 to 51%, and everybody's going to be in the context of a we. Okay. What you master in utility is assignment. That was the last one we talked about last week. Assignment means that we want to get information. Yes, you can type something in on a Google search and get information. At this point, you get 11,475 returns, which nobody's got time to read, and none of it's reliable or trustable. It's really hard to say if what you're reading is correct. And sometimes you have dates. Sometimes you see something and it's 5 years old, or 10 years old or 20 years old, and it's not even reliable. Those are elements. So what you can do is take the tool you learned in utility and make a symbol up there and get information on that symbol. Now, here's a really cute little trick. Why don't you create a symbol up there in the corner of the room? I don't care, whatever symbol you want, and have that represent you. You. Yes, that symbol represents your energy, but it's not in this body. It's in the corner of the room. Now you have you as a source of information and consultation without the body, without all the history, without all the corruption, bias, and interface. I'm in the corner of the room as a source for information, right? The idea is that we process life internally and externally, right? So how we make that transition is that we have an experience that we feel, and then we create a story that we share in the world that takes the experience we feel and translate it into something that happened in the world. Now, most of the time, it is something that happened in the world. I went to the movies today. Okay. You see, that's about me going to the movies. The movies is in the world. Me going to the movies brings me the potential of me seeing a movie into reality, into the story. All right. That's it. And if I say that, someone says, oh, that's cool. Well, then that means I just got validation for value because I went to the movies. Gosh, this is what communications is, right? So that's the integration. Our job is to take a potential, what you don't know yet, and somehow or another get it into the world. When do we take us in the world and us internally in the body and establish a communication so that this can say, if you're going to make that fly in the world, you might try blah, blah, blah. Maybe some of it works, maybe some of it doesn't, but probably better advice than you're going to find on Google. Does that make sense? Don't drop your therapist yet, right? But nonetheless, you start to get some communication. I use that all the time. I basically have an idea, and then after I have an idea, I have to say, what does the world think of this? And I go, wow, for me to find out, I need to not express it as my idea. I need to express it as, here's a novel idea. I don't know where all the pieces came from, but it's kind of been coming together in my head. And so I thought I'd bounce it out and share with you and start to see, what do you think of all this? And what do you have to say about that? And let's converse about that. Do you see how I just played with the we to be able to start to take a look at that? And the we is me in the corner talking to me. So maybe you're going to hear the voices, maybe you're not. They have names for all that stuff. But for the most part, you start to relate to that and you start to sit down and you say, the way it's going to communicate to you is not going to be able talking directly to you. It's like, okay, dummy, this is what you need to do. That doesn't really happen. And if it is happening, you're delusional. They call that schizophrenia. It's not bad, it's fun, but whatever. But the way it usually comes down, it starts to give you clues. It literally just gives you clues. It gives you pointers. It gives you advice as simple little clues. And sometimes they're very abstract, very, very abstract. You just have no clue. And what you have to do is really pay a lot of attention. When I talk to me in the corner of the room, I really got to pay attention because within the next 24 hours, there's going to be a lot of clues coming down. I'm going to have to write them down, which I do on pieces of paper. I got notes around. And somewhere within the end of the week, all of a sudden, I got a whole plethora of notes down there that now are starting to make sense. And now I have the beginning of a new plan, a new approach for defining my operation and a system or an idea, a movement forward, a way to resolve something, or a way to be able to teach a new idea, teach a new concept. I do tests. I come up with new ideas. I do tests with people. I get some response. I get a group of people in my house. We sit around, we play with it, and I watch them. It's kind of like experimenting with, with rabbits. So if they die, you're going the wrong way. None of them have died. Well, most of them haven't died. So it's, it's good news. And that way I get feedback if they don't die. And if they die, you lose all that feedback. And then we interact a little bit, and then we can fine tune that. And these are people that are, for the most part, teachers. So once they get a handle on that, then they implement that into the world and they start sharing that too. And then the whole idea of a new novel approach, a new idea starts to expand out. That's just like a startup company, a basic structure, all this stuff you'll find in a million books framed in a different sort of way. But I just got a 6-week class and a couple hours. And so this is the way that I'm putting that element into it. Is simply you become the you in the world becomes an advisor for you living. You're having the living experience. And this is the structure. If you remember, piece of ice, sounds good. If you remember, I said on the inside, it's always potential. This doesn't flow out and just happen in the world most of the time. It doesn't. It really needs to get mapped out there. It needs to be, because it doesn't come in as structured. It comes in as kind of crazy. Our ideas are like, I might be a real clear picture, but it's usually got most of the pieces missing, or they don't fit together very well. It's kind of like a puzzle that somebody dropped out of the box with another one in. I was in Denver with a friend, and we were working on a puzzle, and we had one piece that we couldn't find. And she was staying in an over 50s home. So there was a lot of older people in there, and they would work on these puzzles for hours and hours. We had a puzzle room. And so she and I were working this puzzle, and we couldn't find it. And we looked all over the place. We crawled under their chairs and everything, thinking we dropped it away, couldn't find it anywhere. So she goes, well, it's not fair that I put this puzzle back in a box and leave it for someone else because there's a piece missing. They're going to go nuts trying to find it. I said, you're right. She said, I should write on it. I says, no, that's no fun. What we need to do is take that puzzle and throw it in the trash and then go buy another one to replace it. Because somewhere you and I lost the piece. She goes, yeah, you're right. That's the best thing to do. I said, okay, fine. So we did. We took it. We put all the pieces in a box. We took it out, threw it in the trash. We went down to a store. We bought to Barnes & Noble, bought a new puzzle, took it back, put it in there. And then we went out to dinner, and we're sitting down at dinner, and she says, let me buy tonight. I said, no, I got it. And she says, well, I know I got some money. And she reached in her pocket and she pulls out, she had some money in there, but she also had a piece of puzzle in there. So she had put it in her pocket somewhere, and it got buried between the bills, and she couldn't feel it or find it when she was. So it's just kind of funny. I let her pay because I bought the puzzle. Anyway, it's just that the way we interact and us becoming is learning to, we're unconscious most of the time. Something like that. Every one of you guys got a million stories where that's happened to you. I'll guarantee you it's happened to me millions of times. It's like, oh my goodness, what'd I do with that? One day I came home for groceries and I was in a rush and I put everything away and I had to go down and pick up the kids at the corner from the bus stop, and I was rushing, and I got down there and I came back and the kid said, well, blah, blah, blah. And they went to go somewhere real quick. And I said, sure, we're grabbing a car and we'll go. I couldn't find the keys. I couldn't find the keys anywhere. And I had a spare key hid. I got the spare key and we went and took care of it. I didn't find the keys the next morning. I opened the freezer the next morning, getting something out to make for breakfast. And there the keys were in the freezer. I had them in my hand. I put stuff in there. I dropped them. They were frozen. So we'll all do this, right? It's just like, come on. It's not a perfect world. We conserve. So first law of thermodynamics, this device conserves. There was a big argument with the second law of thermodynamics, it's entropy. There's some challenging interpretations with what entropy does in the body. If you want some information that's fun to look at, you can read The Rainbow and the Worm. That's a book that's out there, and the latest edition was, I don't know, in 2000 something or another. But it kind of discusses that whole idea, and it's not a book that you read and understand all the details. It's a book that's kind of a mapping that gives you an overview. It's kind of fun to do, but it's a pretty long book, and it's I think the guy that wrote it's got degrees in 3 or 4 different topics. It's very interesting, but he does a nice job of making it simple where most people can understand it. So we get to a level of complexity, and when we start to realize that we have to show up as something different, we have to then become, just like I said before, we have to become the teacher. We have to become the person. We have to become the communication. We have to always become whatever step you're moving into, you become that. It's not you doing something. It's you becoming. If you play a part in a play, you become the character. They tell you that in school, right? That's it. You become the character in your life. So I'm going to cut this one short because I was too long-winded last time. But it gives you an idea that you can kind of chew on. These are not easy steps, but they're still in what I'd call my beginning introductory level. And, we got a little more time the rest of this year. Maybe I can talk about some of the other elements that I put together and utilized in teaching. So coming at some of the more advanced pieces in an approach, a slice, cut it up into pieces. And I used to do the pieces on a 5-year theme. So I actually had people that stayed around for 5 years, took this same class, maybe like exercise in harmony. Once a year I do it, and they take it for 5 years, and they're taking notes and recording. And then they come back to me and they say, Chris, this is year 6. We're into the first day. It's over the first day. I'm going to leave early. I want you to know it's not because I'm not trying to offend you. I have been taking notes and watching you. I have had you say in the group that you do this. I couldn't believe you could do this. And here, 5 years ago, when I took this the first time, now every year I've taken it, and you have used a whole total different approach from this material. This is year 6. And I just listened to the first day, and you have exactly mirrored what you said in my notes and my recording. You have mirrored what you said 5 years, 6 years ago when I took this the first time. And you don't have any notes. You just walk in the door and you do this. Where do you have all this stored? Remember assignments? Right? So can I put those in file folders out there? You start to see what you could do with variations in data and information. Normally, when that workshop is over and I give them CDs of the workshop for that weekend, there's anywhere from 7 to 8 CDs of dialogue, complete CDs that I'm putting out. I don't record the exercises. I just record my dialogue and instructions on the exercises, and then I let them do it. So that's 3 days worth of it, but I just have 7, 8 hours of intro. Intriguing, huh? Just intriguing in the fact that, we can package it somewhere and keep it somewhere. My gosh, I can't remember a grocery list when I'm going to the store. It was like, come on, I got to write it down. Like, it's not like I have an amazing memory. I don't have an amazing memory. Horrible at spelling because that's what it sounded like, but that's not right. So I'm getting better, but 80 years old, I should be getting better. Anyway, that's the game in life, right? You get this. It's not going to ever be perfect. It's just not going to be perfect. Can you get better? Yes. It's all about finding balance, bringing potential to fruition in a world that's all structured. It's not the same world your potential was created in. It's a world that needs to play out, and you got to interface it, and you got to do it with balance. That's it. That's the whole game. And I don't care what language you use. I don't care how you put it together. I don't care if you work with a pendulum or you're doing smoke readings or whatever. I've been through all of those. I've played with all those. I worked with some great people that are amazing that work with all those kind of tools. It's fine. Whatever you want to do. I don't have a problem with any of that. I don't do any of that. I play with assignment, but there's a lot of people that think I'm totally crazy for that. So there's never a question of you're wrong. It's a question of what can you do with the concepts and ideas we're putting forth? Can we get on the same page? Can we become a we? And that's really what I'm looking at right now. But I'd like to see a bigger piece of the global world. Yeah, but maybe somewhere over the next couple hundred years, we could get some packages or groups together that aren't political biased, but a group of interactive people. I'm not saying there isn't any. I've seen some, but I'm just saying we need more and bigger. All right. On that note, thank you very much. I will most certainly entertain questions. And so it's been fun chatting, and I will promise you I will shut up. Thank you very much.